be a potpourri of operation procedures depending on the councils. We're talking about Prospect here, an inner suburban council. We're not talking about like a country area or area, particularly with the proximity of the neighbours in the complex. I've been there, I've seen what's happening there myself, and it seems that the overtures have been made to the person. So now our staff involved in this hopefully will quickly get on to it, and we do have to do things in a formal sort of way. But I do think it could be something that might be raised later about policy. So I believe something might be coming shortly.
Thank you, Councillor.
So I encourage everybody, it's really, to accept it and let's get on with doing something about it.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Stanton, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'll second this and speak to it. I have had a very similar experience in my life where I had a soft-crested cockatoo that lived next door to me in a unit in Walking, just across the road from where Drake's is now. And this thing would wake up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and just screech. And I'm sure that I had PTSD after the first week. They got rid of it, but it is the most horrible way to have a bird, or whether it be a cockerel or a cocky or something like that, to wake you up in the morning and constantly keep going. It's just the most horrible thing. It's just, and it takes you quite a while to get over it once it stops. I fully feel for the petitioner in this particular instance. I support this motion, and hopefully it gets resolved.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion, Councillor Back?
Yeah, I'd like to move to amendment. River and second. You might get up on the screen. Or I can read it out.
It's like it's on its way.
So this is in an attempt to strengthen the motion, so I'll read it out and then basically request that staff prepare a report to be brought back to a meeting with council on the 23rd of April 2024, giving advice to council on the process and costs involved in the creation of an animal management bylaw addressing the keeping of poultry or not keeping of poultry. B, resolves that the Mayor shall write to SA Housing Authority requesting improvements in collaboration and communication between council and the authority to achieve better outcomes in respect to local nuisance issues, drawing particular reference to the recent change in legislation, which gives council greater enforcement powers in relation to properties owned by the authority. I'll briefly speak to it first. So I've been liaising with staff just how to do this, and these situations are incredibly stressful because at the end of the day it comes down to lawyers and what the law says and what we're able to do. So I know even for the case of abandoned cars, we didn't have abandoned cars for months and months, and by law we're actually not able to do much about it. And thank you, Councillor Garnett, for bringing that to our attention. The hodgepodge of different sort of policies and bylaws in different councils. So Marion Council does have a bylaw. I know Campbelltown Council has a mention on their website, yet it doesn't appear that they've got a bylaw to back it up when push comes to shove. But I think certainly councillor definitely groups points about, the housing authority and the tenancy is a really good question as well. So I'd ask the mover and the seconder to accept points 4 and 5 as part of the motion as a way to get us informed about what's happening in the rest of Metropolitan Adelaide and get some consistency there and to lobby the housing authority and potentially the state on this issue.
If you, move, are you okay with that?
As the mover, I'm very happy to include those, and I thank councillor Backer and any other councillors who had the input.
Councillor Stanton, you?
Yeah, I think it strengthens the motion. I'm happy.
Okay, now let's add it to the recommendations. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor Group.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. It's probably the most appropriate time to ask them. I was surprised to read that we did, and thank Councillor Rebecca for her amendment. I was surprised that we didn't have a bylaw in this section. I thought we did, but my research tells me we don't. And in fact, going to our website, we have a fairly loose comment around the roosters, which is you shouldn't keep them, but not much more. But I was more interested in the commentary before that part of our website that talks about keeping poultry, because it actually, this is extending beyond just the rooster issue. But in order to keep poultry in the city of Prospect, and I'm not sure if this is vested in policy or not, but it requires a number of things. I just want to mention some of them. A floor area of at least 1 square metre for each bird, not less than 25 metres from the front boundary of the property, not further forward on the property than the rear half thereof of the rear alignment of any house. Not really sure what that means, but someone probably does. Not less than 1 metre from any boundary of the property, and not less than 15 metres from any dwelling or 1 metre from a shed. So there's a whole lot of requirements that might mean the rooster's actually not just the only issue here, but the poultry might be as well. And I think having some clarity about if this is a sort of utopian state that we want people to keep poultry in, or whether it's actually backed up in policy. It's definitely not backed up in the bylaw, obviously. So I certainly support quite strongly the recommendation for in relation to developing or looking at options to develop a bylaw. So I think there's some other issues here. I think from the SA Housing Authority, used to be my employer, so I know it reasonably well. I think there would be requirements, and I'm surprised to hear that the housing manager isn't managing this as it sounds like other housing managers have. So I'd certainly encourage, I'm not proposing an amendment, but it'd be good to make sure council staff are also talking to the Housing Authority. And I think that's the spirit of Section 5 that Councillor De Backer put up, to make sure that we're talking to the authority together about how we do that, rather than just trying to be a compliance relationship. It should be a sort of more of a partnership one than anything else. So I just think this has actually raised a couple of other issues that we should be aware of. And I'm sure I keep chickens in my house. I'm happy to say I meet these requirements. Fortunately, I think apart from the one I don't actually understand what it's saying, but it would be good to have some clarity about this for the community, so they know if they are going to keep chickens, what the requirements are to have them. But certainly commend the motion to you, and thank Councillor De Backer for her amendments.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Group. Any further discussion? If not, I'll head back to the mover to sum up. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, also, I might add that biologically, one does not need a rooster for hens or chickens to lay eggs. So I would really query why anybody would want a rooster, you know, particularly as it causes so many issues to your neighbours, but that is just a point, something I point out. And perhaps that when we come to discuss about bylaw or policy about this, that there needs to be some information, I think, you know, about that matter as well. So without further ado, essentially one for the involvement, and I think the petitioners to bring it to our attention.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay. Item 8.2. Another deputation. Marnie Mead would like to come up to the table, please. And just for the purposes of the minutes, we could have your name and your address, please.
Sure, I'm Marnie Mead at 50 California Street, Narrowsmith.
Thank you. You've got 5 minutes should you need it, and we'll give you a warning when you hit 4 minutes.
Read. So residents in the proximity of the intersection of Delana and California Streets had letters placed in their mailboxes addressed to the householder on the 22nd of December, at the last working day before Christmas. The letter cited received requests to emphasise road rules at the intersection and proposed a course of action, which we were told was pursuant to Australian road rules. The reinforcement included additional changes to enhance driveway sightlines and improve safety. And all of this resulted in a net loss of a significant number of car parks along California Street. which caused a great deal of distress and angst over the Christmas period. The council characterised this reinforcement as maintenance of existing treatment of the road. And the letter stated works was to be undertaken in January, but it didn't give us a date, so we didn't know when it was going to happen. Because the council was shut over Christmas, we didn't know how to contact anyone about concerns, so we went and sort of walked around the street, asked everyone what they thought, and then wrote an email to council stating our concerns. I've lived on that intersection for 21 years this April. And I've lived on both Pulsford Road and Farron Street. My grandparents have lived in the council area for many years, so I'm more than familiar with the corner and prospect itself. In the view of nearby residents, the proposed removal of all of these car parks would substantially increase the traffic flows and speed at that intersection, making it unsafe. And it felt like to us that the concerns of people using the route as a rat run were being listened to and heard more than residents living at that address. We were advised that the project was then put on hold until further discussions could be had, and I thank councillors Vanden and Sam Delaney and Kelsey Carter, who came out and talked to us on site. At the street corner meeting, residents cited concerns about the likely effect on the traffic from the removal of the parking, and we proposed an alternative solution, which I think some of you might have seen. It's come out in a letter, which was to introduce a stop control at the corner. Residents have also expressed a desire in the first instance to understand the traffic flows a bit better, particularly after the upgrades to Scotty's Corner intersection, which at the time council noted hasn't had the desired calming effect that they would have hoped. We also noted that there were never any signs erected at the chicanes on California Street to say that they were speed limiting and that should be taken at 24 miles an hour. This is the case in most other cases in the council. Again, residents have been advised that this has been under active consideration, the stop control pending this discussion here, and that the intersection would be reviewed as part of a planned integrated transport plan that you guys are undertaking, and there will be a traffic count in March, and we support this. As a long-term resident of the street, I can confirm that we were never told that any other car parking changes would be made when the chicanes were installed, other than the provision of off-street parking in front of 58 California Street. The line marking, to our knowledge, has never been reinforced or updated since the installation of the chicanes. And I don't pretend to be an expert of road rules, and my layperson's interpretation of the transport pave marking manual says that roads or local minor roads that are less than 12 metres in width actually don't need line marking at all. And if they are, there's a reading of the road rules that would allow residents to still park in the areas that were designated and removed. I appreciate the council is trying to use the line markings to tell people there's a corner there and to slow down, but there are probably other ways to do this: stop sign, more signage. In addition, we think there might be some benefit in reinforcing the 20-kilometre-hour residential speed zone at the eastern end of Delaney, because there isn't much signage towards the California Street junction. And we also discussed indented parking as a possible alternative at the meeting. While as residents appreciate and share the council's desire to enhance traffic safety at the corner, we think given the good lines of sight which were noted by everybody at the meeting on the street corner, better signage and the stop control is a preferred approach to removing the on-street parking. Based on our knowledge of the corner, we think removal of the parking will inevitably provide the optics of a clearer road, speed up traffic and encourage higher usage, which will make the corner more unsafe. I understand there's always a balance between consulting with residents and the ordinary business of council, but in this instance, we feel that the proposal to remove a large number of on-street car parks over Christmas was no means minor reinforcing of existing traffic controls. So we've requested that the council consider this alternative proposal of stop control, and then further analysis and investigative work to be undertaken following the March 24 traffic counts, and other changes could be considered, including better signage, indented parking, and residents would very much like to be consulted before any other changes.
Thank you. Any questions for the deputy? Councillor Stanley.
I have a question. Thank you. What a brilliant deputation. Was really good. It highlights all the problems that were there. Have you noticed over the years any sort of change in perceived safety that might warrant a change in the road marking?
Not to my view. I mean, I work, so I'm not there all the time, but particularly over COVID, we're at home all the time. haven't noticed any change, which is why we were confused that the letter initially sent out on the 22nd referred to resident concerns, and in further correspondence, we were told it was resident and police concerns, and we're still trying to work out what that actually means, because we're the residents of the corner and we didn't share those concerns.
And one final question, the revised one that was sent out on the January the 18th.
Yep.
Is that something that the residents would be supporting if it were to be put in permanently?
Definitely, we would definitely support the stock control. I mean, there are other similar stock controls throughout the area that
And the
Yeah,
line marking
right,
that's marked on there,
the
that
line
would be,
marking on the,
that
yeah,
would
I mean,
be-
that, we totally support reinforcing, don't park within 10 meters of the corner. That's totally fine. But what we didn't support was a whole lot of car parks being taken away without talking to us, not understanding why. And like just the feel that that was going to speed up traffic, and that was probably evidenced by the fact that the council's moving to us saying, actually, the stop control might be the better option.
and one final question, if you couldn't park in front of your house at 50, how far up the road would you have to park, considering there's a
There's a,
chicane there?
yeah, and there's also a lot of rental properties, including along Delanga, there's a whole lot of units. It would be a long way, many, how far? Yeah, it would be quite a long way away. It'd be, 50, 60 at least meters, given the number of cars that park on the street all the time, so quite a distance.
Okay, any further questions with Deputy Secretary? That being the case, thanks very much for your presentation. We'll now move on to item 14.2. Page 41 of the agenda. Notion on notice, line marking and parking, some recommendations there. Councillor Stanton would like to move.
Yeah, I might just note that what we had in the motion we had in the agenda has been adjusted slightly, and the motion I'm moving is the one actually up on the screen. I think the difference being is that I've added something in there that allows business as usual, where the other one was probably a little bit restricted with that.
Just give everyone a minute to read that and then we'll. Okay, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will.
Councillor Stanton?
Yeah, this motion primarily came from what happened in the corner of California and Delanga, and Deputy is quite eloquently told us what happened there. Basically, I'll do it again. The council on the 22nd of December, the weekend before the last working day before Christmas, said we're going to be doing these maintenance works. Unfortunately, you're going to lose a lot of car parks in the process. This quite obviously caused the residents involved some angst. I mean, apart from the fact that they couldn't really do anything over Christmas. Then after that, we managed to sort of put halt to that a little bit by having a street corner meeting, and Sam Delena and Kelsey Carter, were there. Thank you for them coming along. So we managed to just press pause on that. And then what happened was that there seemed to be some other car parking issues. It was like playing whack-a-mole for the next couple of weeks. They just kind of kept popping up. There was another one in Stewart Road. There was one in Charlbury. There were some other ones that I read about. So I figured that we had quite a few. And if there was stuff happening that maybe was affecting car parking and having a negative effect on residents, let's have a workshop, press pause, have a workshop, find out what's going on, and see how we can actually just get a better outcome for residents while still meeting our legislative needs with regard to line marking. So what I'm proposing is that we just press pause on anything that actually any line marking that is going to cause people to lose their car parking. Some of these are 20, 21, 22 years, a lot of legacy car parking. And I can't imagine if you've had a park out the front of your house for 21 years and then all of a sudden, because of a very small legislative change or marking that wasn't done there before, all of a sudden you've lost that. You would live your life around being able to park, your car in a certain way and have so many cars out and in and whatever. So I think we need to press pause, just press pause on that, find out what's going on and find a better way forward so that if we do have to do these line markings, that we can find a way, there might be options that we can take, might be different treatments that we can do where we can make sure that these people don't lose their legacy parking. There's other ones with in Stewart Road, there's some signs that have changed and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to that. Let's just unpick all this and find out what's going on. And I think the best place to do that is within a workshop. So I'm sure there's councillors here have got their own stories about what's happened within this space. I'd encourage them to come forward and talk about those. And I encourage you to support this motion.
Thank you, councillor Stan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hollop would like to speak to the motion.
And look, I do support this motion. I think, you know, there is, I mean, if this is something that's happening, this line marking around the council area, that people will question it, just as Marnie has. And unless there is a particular circumstances that require you to have the marking, perhaps there have been more accidents in a particular spot, but it doesn't appear to be the case. It's more legislative or and we do not need, you know, we can't afford to lose parking spots, particularly you know, across the entire council area. That's something I think we really should keep in mind at all times. I do think a workshop is required to just discuss these issues and if there are the alternatives and just what is the responsibility of council in regards to changes of this kind. Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Thanks, councillor Hollop. Is there any further discussion on the motion? I'll go to councillor Backer, then councillor Barnett.
Yeah, firstly, councillor Stanton, thank you for bringing the motion. Yeah, I think there is some points raised. There's probably a couple of things I'd like to bring up. One was in regards to the consultation. So casting our minds back to September, I asked a question on notice around consultation. This is for other areas of the city. And that went out a couple of times where people missed, or it was around the festive period, and there'd been lessons learned in that. And I just want to see how that's been embedded in this round of consultation, because it was noted that the festive period is not a good time to do consultation, because for that very reason you can't contact administration. And that was September. So I'm just concerned that though council already can ask that, we haven't sort of seen that considered. The second thing I'm really concerned about is this as a standalone to the work we're doing in the village park. So I actually went to go park across the road and other parks just keep into everything. So the 10-metre rule, there is a note that says where safe, you can actually have signage. You know, obviously that requires some discussions, but you have to remember the value of a car park, particularly the village park, is around about $30,000 to $40,000. And if we had to build a car park, you know, it would cost a lot of money. So we've lost one here, and the proposal down here at Daphne Street is looking to get rid of 3. And then if you go to the CEO report from December 6th, I read the consultation that went out, said residents. It didn't say residents and businesses. So if you were a business, you say, well, this has nothing to do with it. But it actually didn't highlight the fact that car parks are being lost because the image is this big. So from a village heart and a trader perspective, and our residents who also have this main street, I think anything that triggers car parking loss should have a little red flag. We just really need to go, hey, hang on a second, we're losing car parks here. And just further to that, I think we're still waiting to hear back where the traders group is. Because how do we feed this information back to the traders group? So maybe a question through the chair to either the director or the CEO when the next traders group.
What's the question? Sorry.
But just in regard, we've got a village park traders group.
Yep.
So a way to get some of this information out and some input. We were waiting to hear back when the next meeting was. So maybe through.
CEO.
Mr. Pearce, do you have that information or you need to take that on notice?
Through the mayor, I'll need to take that on notice. I think we've got something up the good for this that day.
Yeah, so I think, so, you know, parking management and safety is an issue. When we're losing car parks, it really needs to be escalated and consulted. So, with Daphne Street, I'm assuming that this second point, maybe I'll clarify through the chair, if this particular motion will halt, the works on Daphne Street.
See you. Mr. Bowen, your understanding of whether this motion would achieve a halt of the work on Daphne Street?
Correct, through the mayor, we've put that on hold, and we actually feel that should this motion get up, it would be a great case study to present to members about the complexities of that intersection, and we can go through the consultation process, how we came to that, to that design
And that's great feedback. So, because we've got to look at it at a precinct level, because people are going to do U-turns, and they're going to do U-turns somewhere. So if they don't do it there, they're going to do it OTR or further down. So I'd rather sort of have a designated space where U-turns are going to happen, where Uber drivers are going to park, where accessible car parks are going to be. You know, I think this is what all elected members have asked for all along. So the ITP coming first would be great, and then we do line marking, but the line marking is going to happen first, and then we're doing the ITP, which is not great, but I think, you know, this is kind of why we're going to need a workshop in between points. So I'm going to commend the motion.
Thank you, councillor Barnett.
Yes, I agree with the previous comments, and I've had we've had some in Westbourne, particularly Daphne Street, but even though that appears to be halted, the information back from there is that there still needs to be another step put in. So it wasn't as Westport councillors, I don't think we're aware of that, which just brings me to the point. The only way that I knew that some line marking was going on was when I was driving up and down Vaughan Road and place, and I thought, oh, my first one was, gee, the lines could be wonky. And then we started getting the complaints from residents that they, you know, appear to be losing spaces. So, you know, we've had for 10 years and this and that. So anyway, so I'm glad that this has sort of been a halt we put on this. And I just guess as a ward councillor, I just would have liked a heads up somehow, somewhere that this was happening in the ward, you know, sort of then have to sort of, this happens, you get complaints and then you backtrack to staff and take up, you know, more time with staff. So that just would be appreciated. You know, letters are going out to residents about any changes. You know, you could just leave it to the appropriate ward councillors. I would hope. Anyway, that's just something else. You know, consultation workshop. So I went to see view another complaint from the Hunt Street resident, and that's been put into the system. And I was just absolutely gobsmacked at the number of spaces that have disappeared there. It's all just about all yellow lines down near most of the whole street, partly because I think the top part is a narrow street, which that's understandable. Some of the feedback that we've been getting is that it's really good to know about the 10 metre about no parking around the corners that are actually now very visible, because I'm sure there may be lots of people that they're you know, road rules quite a few times ago, and you know, if anything's come up that's new, I'm just glad for give them a plug, the RAA magazine. I take the quiz that they do on the road rule. So so far I've passed. But yes, I think it's good to make some of these, you know, things visible. And I'm glad that we can just say, okay, you know, something's happening here. We need to have a more close look at it. Let's look at it as not a problem, but something solved, you know, quickly, because this is part of a citywide process, which is sort of like being a normal line painting thing. And I think a lot of residents are actually very pleased to actually have more visible lines, and so a lot of the faded out ones, you know. So I commend the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion, councillor?
I share the same concerns as councillor De Backer in regards to the consultation. When letters get sent to residents before festive Christmas, Easter. And that was a comment that I made towards the end of last year with regards to the consultation with Matthews Reserve and Livingston, that we were going to do it during the Christmas New Year period, and when the council's shut, and they want to communicate, that's really hard. So just want to flag that to the CEO, that just timing of the consultation when letters get sent to community members, it's really crucial, because you want that communication, you want that flow. In regards to the motion, I just want to ask a question. The workshop, if we were to agree with this, will the workshop be within the next 2 months or so?
So, yeah,
I'm gonna have to take that on notice, because firstly, the motion has been passed.
Yeah.
Secondly, I can always guarantee you I'd want an external consultant to deliver this one, simply to give you confidence that you're getting essentially the second opinion that I feel Councillor Standen is asking for here around some of the unique local issues that have arisen. We have a traffic engineer on staff, and I think, there appears to be a desire from council to confirm the advice that's coming from, not to question, but to confirm, because nobody wants to lose parking spaces. We get that. In terms of the timing though, we've got budget basically sucking up the entire month of March, and we have a number of workshops already scheduled in February. How quickly we can pull this together, I don't know. I will say that from a staff perspective, the conversations we've had are that the revised motion, which will again quarantine any works that would result in a reduction in parking availability, enables us essentially to park this for a couple of months, get the line marking for this season that we can get done, and over sometime during the winter have this discussion, so that when we renew line marking renewal works next spring, summer, that we can have that conversation well before then and have a position established. That's my feeling, is that this gives us some time to have this workshop a little further down the track, and that there'll be no significant impact in the interim. That was what I had anticipated coming out of this.
Yeah.
If members are keen to have it sooner, we're going to have to put something else off. I guess that's or potentially put something else off. I haven't carefully reviewed though what's required here, and we don't have someone to deliver this yet.
My concern is not putting enough time frame, and we have the workshop May, June, July. Would that be, because the second motion says to halt any line, like if we, until a workshop gets, until we have the workshop, and so.
But the revised motion only halts line marking that will reduce parking availability.
Okay.
It enables us to continue with all the other line marking, which is why, again, I felt that this particular revised motion of balance gives us the freedom to do most of what we'd be doing, and certainly wouldn't impact parking in the meantime, but allows us to get on with the common sense line renewal, painting a new line where there was an old one, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Nelson, I think you want.
Just a very quick one, just to thank Councillor Standen for bringing the motion forward. He did mention Stewart Road, so for those playing along at home, Stewart Road was a very weird one, where there was always been signs up that said no parking between 8 and 9 and 3 and 4 on school days. Suddenly, one day they changed to be 8 and 9 and 3 to 4, Monday to Friday. It makes no common sense to have that happening during school holidays. So it'd be good to understand why these things are in place, what advice we took to say that we had to have those restrictions in during school holidays, because no one else I spoke to understands the need for that. So again, I thank Councillor Standen for the motion.
Councillor Trindwin.
Yes, I have a question. So with the new lines that have been marked, so not the ones that are just renewing lines, will we be removing them until we have this workshop and an outcome, or will they be remaining?
So yeah,
Mr. Bowen?
Through the mayor, we put a hold on when looking at that motion and stand, we put a hold on any line making that would result in a perceived loss of parking. So at the moment, any work that's being done is just been to our school zone, which is refreshing existing line marking, but none that would be detrimental to perceived loss of parking.
So because I've had, residents of the West Ward, already, coming forward with, issues, directly in front of their property. So I've got, Brad Robertson from 51A Rose Street, he's on the corner block of Thorn and Rose. And the new lines that, have been put there, has, taken away parking space in the road. And he said that it would, just move the issue to another section onto Thorn Road. And he said another resident close by contacted council about a line in front of his house that took away his car park space. They've come out and drew that line over his to give it back to him. So he was wondering whether that would be the same case for him or the new line markings that have been done that are new, not just replacing the yellow lines that were already there.
So, yeah,
Mr. Brown, are you aware of these particular circumstances?
Through the chair, not specifically, but what I'd ask is if you could put that in writing to council, or to administration, and then we can follow up and inform them. I suspect that where we've had to make changes, we have consulted, we have gone through a democratic process, come with an outcome, communicated that outcome to residents. We've also generally put that into the CEO update, and then we've gone and implemented the work. So if this had happened several months ago, we can certainly unpack and have a look at how we came to that decision. But yeah, if you can send through a bit more detail, happy to take that on notice and get back to members.
So members, individual issues probably best to deal with on a case-by-case basis. The first I knew of this was when I got a series of emails over the Christmas break. So it's all sort of come about in the last couple of weeks. This was intended to be an essential line marking renewal program, one that we haven't had for many years. I think what we have are line marking contractors who are operating to the letter of the law in a space where traditionally we haven't marked to the letter of the law. And I think that's the fundamental question that the workshop needs to cover off on. The question of blacking out new lines that may or may not reflect the road rules is an interesting question I think needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis, because there are challenges there potentially for council. If we were to black out lines that we then have to put back again, that might even be worse. But if there are particular situations where we put the lines in a spot where, according to staff, there are other options, such as those we've discussed tonight in California, then we can manage those. I think we need to get this workshop going for this reason. I don't want it 6 months down the track either, but equally there is some work to do before we bring this to you, because we want to come with good information and inform you on issues such as liability and what the legalities require of us, and the cost benefit of, let's say, for example, I heard the comment tonight, maybe we just don't do any line marking. I don't know how that looks in practice or what that might look like, from a liability or risk standpoint. So there are a number of issues that we need to cover off on. So we want to bring you a workshop that's properly thought through and give you the best information we can.
thank you. So, yeah. Any further questions?
Yeah, I think a lot of them were they just asked, or they just said that they would appreciate some notice. So they were aware of what was happening, before the changes were made, so that they could have them. So that was just the feedback that they were giving.
Thank you. Any further discussion? That being the case, I'll head back to councillor Stanton to sum up.
Fantastic discussion and brought up a whole lot of other little sort of minor issues. We talked about that there hasn't been any car parking that has been lost. Wilcox has lost two, notably one that I park in when I come to council just at the end of the street here. If we could open the curtains, we could see it. It seems like instead of a line that went halfway around the corner and a sign that said parking time, the sign has gone and the line goes all the way around the corner. So obviously there's options of a sign and a shorter line and a longer line. The same tack on the other side. So two parks there have gone, probably without community consultation, because there's no community that actually you probably need to consult with over there. So there are two that have gone, and so if those two go, just kind of little nips and tucks here, a little nip and tuck here, we're going to lose quite a lot of car parks. The other thing I think we really highlighted was that if we do actually consult with the community, and we went down and had a street corner meeting, and the community went, well, you don't have to do this here because we could, if we get rid of that line and we park our cars here, you know, here's a solution to provide the road safety measures that you're looking for. We can provide by doing this, and if you put a stop sign over there. So I think the really important thing that we learned from that we probably don't need external consultation who don't know anything about the particular intersection. We actually had some street corner meetings, stood there with the residents and said, well, you've lived here for 23 years. What do you think the solution is? And does the solution that you come up with meet the standards that we have to meet? We might actually find some solutions within the community without actually going out to external consultation. One of the reasons that a lot of councillors become councillors is because they come home one day and something has happened in front of their street. The road markings disappeared, or the road's been blocked off, or a tree's gone, or something like that. And it's the surprise and the horror that something has happened without their control. And I think that's what's happened with a lot of residents that we've got at the moment. They come home and their car park is gone. And I think that's the lesson to be learned here, is that we maybe, you know, and especially over Christmas. I mean, I can't imagine someone took my car park over Christmas, before Christmas. I had no one to talk to, and just absolutely manifest me over Christmas and ruin that Christmas period. I think consultation is not just about we're doing this, it's about what do you think, you know, can be done here, and we'll have a proper conversation about it. I commend this to your vote. I think it sounds like it's not just one street or two streets. It sounds like there's a lot happening across the city, and if we can actually bundle that into one workshop, I don't necessarily know it needs some external consultation. I think the solutions may be within the staff that we've already got. If we can just maybe encourage them to think a little bit deeper, look into their professional background and think, instead of this solution, you probably know that there's another solution there. You just need to actually go for it and find out. I think we've probably got the internal expertise. You just need to give them a little rev up. Anyway, I commend this to your vote.
Thank you, councillor Standen. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay. Item 9 on the agenda, questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Okay, so move on to reports for decision. Item 10.1, integrated transport plan update, recommendations on page 7 of the agenda. Do I have a mover? Councillor Deputy Mayor Mark Groot.
Thank you, Mayor. I would love to move it. And in doing so, I was reflecting back to November 2017, where item 9.1, I'd have to be Deputy Mayor at the time too, but so I moved, and Councillor Barnett seconded a range of traffic calming motions, including a 40km speed limit, but also including one little dot point here that says new thinking on local area traffic management, including critical review of the precinct by precinct approach and consideration of a range of traffic calming solutions for local streets across the city. And so I'm really pleased tonight that we are one step further along that pathway with an ITP. It feels like 7 years ago is a long time. I think we had a Queen, we had Malcolm Turnbull as the Prime Minister. Things were very different, but we're here. We are here, and so I certainly commend this to council. I'm a little bit concerned about some of the timing in it, because we've got a long way ahead of us. This is not a quick process, and I accept professional advice that just might be the case. I do note that from the community engagement in May 2024 to a council workshop on the draft plan is 7 months. That is a long time. That's the bit where it could be, I think, maybe brought forward. But again, I'm not a traffic engineer. This is not my area of expertise. Things do take time, but it does feel like it's a fair while until we can see something tangible for us to consider and talk about. We talk about line marking, we talk about parking. I find myself talking to residents all the time about, don't worry, we'll solve this through the ITP. And I hope that the scope of the consultant's brief is enough to do that. I think the devil's going to be in the detail in terms of what's in that. That's for us to try and prosecute further in the consultation processes. And I think there's enough in there for us to make sure we get what we need out of this. But this is probably one of the most important things for us to do in the City of Prospect. And I'm really supportive of it. I'm excited it's here. I did get some feedback from a couple of residents, and I just want to read out some of the comments that was made by one particular resident, because I thought it was actually very articulate and very good and reflect my views as well. So please bear with me. And I'll try and be brief. I note the community consultation comes rather late in the piece after various council workshops. I hope council and councillors will remain open-minded to possible input from the community. And I think that's a really good lesson for all of us to consult with our community as we go through this process and make sure their views are part of our discussion. I note the pleasing reference to all transport modes, cars, public transport, cycling, pedestrian. I hope consultant qualifications will cover all these areas rather than just the predominant car transport, which I think is a good point, because this has started off as a car thing, and we often talk about it as a car thing because it's parking and it's rat running. I know Mark doesn't like that term. It's often car orientated, but it is more than that, of course, in terms of walking and cycling and other modes of transport. With respect to looking at transport pathways, references made to shopping centres, bus stops, etc. There's no reference to recreation and health and wellness facilities, an increasingly important destination for all age groups in our community. And so the thought there was, those things might exist in the life of the plan. So we need to think forward a little bit in terms of how that might work for us. And that's actually the next point. The project's looking at a 10-year span. I don't see a clear indication of looking at what new facilities may emerge over that time. We talk a lot about cycleways, but looking at the current usage is not much of an indicator of future use or community wishes for future use. Current cycleways seem to be very unsafe. I'm sure there are families who like to cycle more, but are reluctant to for safety reasons. So I think that's that sort of focus on cycling as well as a car use. I did notice a rather unnerving qualification in costs earlier in the report. If we can buy a property for $8.3 million, I hope we can pay for a proper study and implementation so that all community members will have free access to whatever develops and there and elsewhere in the future, not just car drivers. So I think that's everyone that this is not probably the time to skimp on getting a full consultant to do it, but we get one go at this really, and we need to do it properly. And the last comment that was made was, I hope the study is just the very first step in giving us a meaningful long-term transport networks within Prospect that put us in the forefront of sustainable long-term community access approach. And I thought that was actually a really nice summary, sustainable long-term community access approach. So I'm really excited about this. I want it to happen yesterday. I want it to happen in 2017. But I asked for a council report by March 2018. We didn't quite get there, but we got the 40Ks in, so that was part of it. I just want to thank the administration because there have been successive administrations that haven't got to this point. So I'm very excited we have actually got to this point. So thank you, CEO and team, for what you've done to do that. Bring it on, I say, and I look forward to the conversations and the consultations that we have. And if we can have more community consultations earlier on, that's a bonus for us as well. But if not, it's up to us to talk to our community about that as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Greg. Do I have a second?
Oh, perhaps I'll follow history and tradition and
That's right.
the second. Yeah, so yeah, I concur with Councillor Groot and his residents' comments. And yeah, I just think if we can just keep on with the momentum, it will go past this current council's term of office over 10 years. But that's good if we can get the right foundations in place, and if we have our community behind us. I think that would be good. Also, in its name, integrated transport plan, so it's looking at all transport modes. So who knows what the future might bring? That would be electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles. So we've got the 10 years. It has to be in line with our strategic community plan and long-term financial plan, which we do consult on. And we've also got to take into account the state's 30-year plan for Greater Adelaide and the state's integrated transport and land use plan. So there are lots of parts of the jigsaw. We're trying to get our part of the jigsaw going. And let's do it as been noted in the report. Thank the report writer, working with our community and stakeholders. And it was interesting, looking at prioritising possible future local area traffic management approaches, review possible locations to establish public open space, which we're still a bit underdone, and plazas, and review existing treatments to traffic calm local streets. So, and then just pop it in the village car park feasibility study. So we've got a big broad plate here, but I think, you know, we're getting there. All right, thank goodness.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Rebecca.
Yeah, I'd like to move amendment. So, and I agree with all the points made by the previous speakers, and I'd love that resident to be our reference. So point 3, delegates to the CEO to make minor amendments to the project brief to enhance the key themes of active transport, which is your walking and your cycling and, you know, and active neighbourhoods, for further consideration in developing the transport plan. I discussed this previously with the director and also the acting director of South Strategy, Community and Culture. Councillor Barnett and myself were fortunate enough last year to participate in a discussion with someone who had looked at Victoria and how we've got that overlap of active neighbourhoods, which is your kids walking to school, people walking to places of interest, accessibility, lighting, passive surveillance. Where does that overlap? Because I think what can get lost in some of this is, I know members around the room that in previous councils have said, well, you can have the best quality footpath, but if you don't have shade canopy and you don't have lighting at night, people won't use it. Or if you don't have accessible by prams, no one will use it. Another example is that when we're doing, you know, capital works, we tend to do it road by road by road. We don't actually look at the linkages between the walking paths, as at the Prospect Terrace and Old Street, New Street, and a lot of people walk their dogs along there to Prospect Oval. Why can't that entity be something that we do as a capital works project? So it's just highlighting in the brief document that we're seeking best practice and that we're looking for you know, active transports and active neighbourhood outcomes. And look, I'd really love to see this as a, you know, cross-departmental project. And I'd like to hear others' thoughts, you know, in supporting the third point that I'd encourage you to move in the seconder or otherwise.
Mover?
Yes.
Seconded.
Yes.
Okay, then we're now voting on what you see on the screen there. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Trinwin.
Thank you, Adeline, for getting this back to us. I think many of you know that parking is a priority for me. So this is just a start for us to kind of look at the plan for the next 10 years. So, you know, we obviously can't, you know, do any quick fixes to resolve any of the issues, but looking at it for the next 10 years, and then looking at also like the, you know, key growth areas like Churchill Road and Prospect Road, and then also the greater 30-year plan for the Greater Adelaide. So, you know, all of these things look at factoring in to really for the growth of our city to make sure it doesn't impact our, you know, transport networks. And I really look forward to finally being able to, you know, engage with the community and bring them along this process to make sure that their input is, you know, seen, and that, you know, that really plays a strong role in ensuring the transparency of this whole process. And I definitely encourage, yeah, residents and also businesses to bring in their key issues so that we can work together in creating these objectives for the plan that we find a priority in our community. So I am pleased with the report and support the recommendations.
Councillor Standard.
Yeah, fantastic. I reiterate the thoughts of others saying that we need to look at a wide range of transport options. I mean, cars, we usually focus on the car, and then down the other end of the food chain, you've got the bike, but in the middle, there's these other options, you know, there's MB Lucy Hood rides a motor scooter around the place, and I also ride a motor scooter, and it can be quite a hostile environment if you're coming down California Street and you hit one of those without knowing it, hit a traffic calming device with a little 10-inch wheel. You're very lucky not to, you know, not to come off. So we need to, in whatever we do, we need to ensure that we're looking out for all ranges of transport, from cars to motor scooters to bikes. And I'm sure this year at some stage, personal electric scooters, it looks like they'll be legislated. So we'll be, as they come online, we'll be flooded with those because they're a good, efficient, economical, eco-friendly way of personal transport. So they'll be out throughout our neighbourhood as well. And there's electric assisted bikes which go a little bit faster than a regular bike. So the landscape of transport isn't just cars and bikes and walking. It's far broader than that. So and EV vehicles, which you know, they're a little bit quieter. Do we need to, you know, find ways that people in the village heart aren't going to be, you know, bowled over one? So there's a lot of options, and as it goes down the track, the landscape gets broader. But it's fantastic. It's not, I think personally that things like the 40K zone have been absolutely magnificent and well brought forward. But how do we enforce that? We have wonderful powers to make laws and have all these speed limits and do this and do that, but we have very few powers in enforcing them. And in the past, enforcing road rules and speed limits and volumes and things like that have been, you know, let's just put a hunk of concrete across the road and call it a speed hump and just ruin our roads by trying to enforce. Is there other ways that we can bring other agencies on board to try and enforce, to help us enforce the rules that we have in place? But we're like a toothless tiger. We can say, you can go 40 Ks, don't go more than 40 Ks, but we've got really no way of stopping you. So should we be looking at other ways that we can actually enforce the laws that we have in place without actually just ruining the road network? I think it's a fascinating time. I look forward to it. It's one of the things that I find great interest in is our traffic network and how people move around, what we can do, what we can't do. And it's one of the very visible things to our residents as well. So we pretty much have to get it right.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I just want to commend the CEO and his team for getting this report back to us. When I first came on 2018, all I heard was the ITP is coming, or it's going to solve our traffic and parking, all the traffic issues. And, you know, at that time I was thinking, come on, ITP, how long does it take? So what we have now, it's a long way since then. So I just want to commend that, the report, and, you know, thank the CEO and his team.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, I'll head back to the Deputy Mayor to sum up.
You're sounding old, Councillor. So I've been here forever. Look, I think enough's been said. Certainly support the motion to council, and I think from what people have been saying, we'll get through. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.2, periodic review of key financial indicators and 24-25 annual business plan and budget parameters. Recommendations on page 24 of your agenda. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Mark Green.
It excites me to move this one.
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Look, I'm interested to see what other people have to say, knowing that this has gone through, I believe this has gone through audit risk, so it has had some consideration outside of the chamber. Happy to move it to get on the table.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Stanton would like to speak to the motion.
I think it's all been said.
Is there anything else that hasn't already been said? That people would like
It's
to
been
raise? That's pretty open. Councillor Beckett.
Through the chair, I was at the meeting, but I understand that it was by consensus, it's not unanimous, but yeah, I would like to hear from other speakers maybe who are at the meeting, to just go through some of that thinking.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Councillor
I'm
Nelson.
happy to speak briefly on it. It wasn't a confidential discussion or anything else. Obviously, I was at the meeting, so I kind of guessed you might have been sensing that. So you're right, it was by consensus. It wasn't unanimous. I was the odd one out, I believe. only because there was a lot of discussion about changing the net liabilities, net financial liabilities for an individual year to keep that at less than 90%, even though we're currently at, I think, 104, maybe going to 108-ish. I sort of stated that I sort of thought that was a bit of a false sense of security, the fact that we're setting a guideline that we know we're not going to meet. But obviously there was a robust discussion that took place, and that was what was resolved.
Thank you. Has anyone else got anything that they'd like to add? If not, I'll head back to Councillor Groot, Deputy Mayor Mark Summer.
I'm not sure there's a lot to sum up, except to say, thank you to Councillor Nelson for relaying the issue about the net financial liabilities ratio. I'm just trying to remind myself, there's only one elected member on the mayor, isn't there?
And the mayor.
And the mayor, yeah, okay. So no, look, I'm sure everyone's read it, understands it, and I'll let them vote as they wish. I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay. Item 11 on the agenda, general business of an urgent nature. Are there any urgent items that people wish to raise? Not, we'll move on to item 12, reports for information. There's 2 reports for information there which can be taken that result on block unless either of those items are reserved. Would anyone like to pull out item 12.1? Councillor Backer. Okay, then we'll vote on block for item 12.2 of a mover. Sorry? Oh, certainly. Will I ask for the reason to put them out? Don't need to. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, item 12.1. Try to move.
Yeah, I'll move to go.
Yeah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, I think, the new way of doing business is really interesting, and like those before, that I was probably a little bit against the ways of doing it because it seemed to reduce the cost to developers in the front end, and perceived loss of income. I guess this report, what it does is say how we're managing those deeds. I'm going to try and ask a few questions because the report covers some of it. But I guess really what I'm trying to understand is what's the qualifier for doing the section 221 in the framework? And like, does every big development go through that process? Or are we selecting some businesses, some developments to go through that process? And what is the decision making by which we do that? So I notice there's one live at the moment, there's a couple coming on board, but I suppose just as an elected member and for the community, understand the decision making around that and who makes that decision. So maybe that's just a question to the chair to the relevant director.
So I'm going to flick this to Mr. Pearce, but before I do, I will say that the overriding and first obstacle that development must clear is that it has to require a section 221 permit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if there is no need for that development to occupy public realm in order to deliver the output,
yeah,
then we can't encourage them to engage with us on this issue.
Right.
Beyond that, there will be a question of, obviously, it's an agreement, not something we can force on board. But from there, which ones we choose to bring on board, Mr. Pearce, the process we've been working through to identify the correct developments to apply this process to.
Yeah, for the mayor, I think the CEO has probably answered that question. I guess add to that, the aim is to roll the system out to every developer in the city that occupies public realm, that we want to encourage good developer behaviour, discourage poor developer behaviour, to improve the amenity of the city. So the aim ultimately is every single developer. Now, I guess that's the broad answer. However, every single developer, if you think about it, also includes a myriad of very small developers. For example, driveway crossovers that impact the public realm there. This particular system that has been put in place doesn't cover those necessarily because the smaller ones fall into a separate bucket. this particular system is really targeted at the major developers, as we've seen before. But ultimately, every development that's in the prospect is being targeted, that impacts the government.
I think to that, John, it would also be fair to say, but if not, that it comes down to a question of the scale of the development, the perceived impact on the community versus the cost and effort required to go through a process of negotiating and building a deed to apply that to. So it would have to be reasonably significant developments, certainly not as Mr. Pearce has outlined, a development that's occupying maybe a short stretch of street frontage and a single crossover, for example.
So, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'd like to thank you through the report. I think it's really, really important just to understand, some of the damage that can be done as part of these projects. Like, we are a growing city and there's a lot of development going on, and also acknowledging sort of budget requirements. There's a potential future asset protection officer, and I think like we've just talked about ITP, things like placemaking and all those kind of things. So we spend all this money on capital works and then it gets ruined. So I think it's really key that we get this right. And I thank the team for the regular meetings, and there's all kinds of things go on that elected members aren't aware of. So I understand it's always a bit of a push and pull with this kind of thing, but I commend the motion and thank you for bringing it.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I'll second that, and I found it quite very interesting, the report, so thanks to the report writers. And, even though we may think of this as just some of the bigger developments that we've been having, mainly say down on, well, Harrington's been mentioned in the report, but coming back a few years when we're getting the ones on Devonport Terrace and Churchill Road, and that, but I think it also applies. I've noticed in some of our streets that are like narrower streets, as soon as you have even just it's great that people are renovating and improving their property and all that, but it has major impact quite often for 4 to 5 months, particularly in a small street, and the whole a big area is taken up with all the trades, and that. So if some of them, I haven't heard of many of them lately, but some of them do like their loud music and all that. So I think some of this, also tempers, that to have sort of good behaviour, good sort of conditions. It works both ways for the residents that are having the work done, their neighbours, and trying to have a good standard, in our city and make it known that that's what we expect. So I support.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Has anyone else got anything to add that hasn't already been covered? That being the case, I'll head back to Councillor at the back to sum up. Thank you. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 12.2, Mirror Monthly Activity Report. Councillor Backer.
Yeah, thank you again for the report and also the diversity. I know all of us have looked at social media and some of the issues around parking shortfalls with affordable housing concessions. I'm just wondering, in the capacity as mayor, are any meetings we're having at the moment advocacy for improving outcomes for this kind of developments?
Which kind of development, sorry?
So we've experienced a couple of the residents have alerted the elected member body to some community housing developments. So obviously we're not the certified authority, but certainly the sentiment, I guess, in regards to affordable housing. I'm just wondering if we're kind of talking to stage without those development issues at the moment.
I haven't been, I'm not sure whether the CEO's.
Yeah, I confess, I haven't had an opportunity yet to brief the mayor on the outcomes of the special meeting, and obviously what comes next. The submission that was directed by council, as part of that special meeting was submitted. And so, yeah, presumably there will be an opportunity, for the mayor, to present to the SCAP on that issue, when it comes before the SCAP. Mr. McCluskey, do we have any sense of when that might be in terms of the particular development that was subject to the special meeting, or the two?
Through this year, we haven't received any feedback from SCAP staff about either of those matters. If there are amendments to those meetings, then likely to trigger further consultation over quite an extensive time frame. But if there's no amendments, it's likely to be February, March time meeting. Right, I don't have
Should also add that, from a staff perspective, we haven't yet gone through the process of rescheduling all of our standing meetings with the federal and state local members. It's something that we've been struggling to get on top of this year, primarily because of my diary, not the mayor's. So that's something we hope to have sorted out within the next week or so. So with that and a briefing to the mayor, we'll be able to move forward with that. We also have a meeting booked with the Director, City Strategy, Community and Culture, who's currently on leave, who will be working with the mayor and I to present a roadmap for rolling out the advocacy register, which obviously includes a specific section dealing with parking. So in defence of the mayor, I can say that there's a body of work happening on the staff end to program all of those activities, and mayor's not yet on top of that. We've had some other priorities in the past week or so since I've got back from leave.
That's great. Further to that, it would be great to have there's a calendar of key platforms, like be they conferences or Era, whatever, that even if council are aware of them, we might be able to get up motions to present to set meetings. So I just encourage you to think about the next 6 to 12 months and how we as a member body can facilitate that advocacy.
Certainly take that on board, and I'm sure the mayor will discuss that with us when we brief him.
So am I taking that you're moving the motion? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Deputy Mayor Mark Gregg, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you. Is there anything else to add that hasn't already been discussed? If not, I'll head back to Councillor Backer to sign. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, item 13, council member reports and briefings. Are there any council member reports and briefings?
Perhaps
Thank you, Councillor
I
Barnett.
can just speak to particularly number 2 about Church of Green, which is the newest group on the block down by the open hand bridge and the facility around there. This time our Church of Green and we have had 15 volunteers, and some of them with family groups as well, that we're looking at how we can involve more of the residents with children. So you can see up there that there's work to be done. With graffiti, it's not too much. It's just mainly there was a bit of tagging on the bench, the seat benches. And we work under as volunteers with Railhead, the Department of Infrastructure and Transport. So we're covered, you know, for as volunteers, and they provide a lot of you know, that pick for you, hats, you know, vests and trails and the plants, you know, that. So it's very good. So it's working quite well. So yeah.
Thank you. Any further reports or briefings? Not move on to item 14, motions on notice. Item 14.1, notion of notice installing and relocating automated external defibrillators. Councillor Hollett, would you like to move the motion?
Yes, I'd like to put forward this motion.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will.
Over to you.
Okay, I'm proposing that council move two internal defibrillators, automated external defibrillators. I'll just call them AED. It's such a old term. We have them currently fitted in council buildings here as required by legislation. Currently, they're indoors. I'm proposing that the ones in Nailsworth Community Hall, the one in Nailsworth Community Hall, and the one in Cane Reserve Club Rooms be fitted externally to visible positions. So on the walls outside of these two locations, they're both areas that I'll actually go into it. I've got a little to say here. In the case of Nailsworth Community Hall and Charles Cane Reserve, both places have restricted hours and AED's availability is an issue. And with RL Pash Reserve being redeveloped, I anticipate there'll be more visitors to the location in the future. Charles Cane, so many visit that location well into the evening. People walk. The area is getting quite busy, and with more apartments being built, I anticipate, and we do have a shortage of parks, these locations will just get busier over time. I think it's good that they're located outside, and it is mainly because of the restricted hours in these two locations. The third change is a purchase and fit of an AED to and an outdoor cabinet in the vicinity of Vine Street Plaza or Prospect Road. So close to Vine Street, but it depends which position is considered more viable by council. All these need to be visible. There is signage that's part of the comes with it. There is no power source required for external defibrillators, and all that's required is 3 cabinets and 1 new defibrillator. The cost for this I have calculated to be no more than $3,500. I know there is a quote here, council have looked into it, but I'm not so sure about that. Whether prices have changed, I'm not sure if council has been looked into this further. If someone wants to correct me on that, I'm happy to.
You're asking a question.
Yes. My quote I got for this was I was actually looking at St. John's site. I came in at just under $3,500 for 1 AED, brand new AED, and 3 cabinets. And 3.5 was for a stand cabinet. So it is very much a low cost project, basically. Really, that's about it. I don't really have to go too much into heart disease, but really it's the leading cause of death in Australia. It leads cancer and car accidents. It really is. I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, but it's also the leading cause of death in the 45 to 64-year-old age group, and that's the most recent statistics by the Australian Institute of Health and Wellbeing. And they were last done 2019 to 21. And it's actually the 4th leading cause of death in the 25 to 44-year-old age group. So it's, we don't think much of don't think anything of spending money on, speed humps, roundabouts, signage. Safety is a big issue. And some of these projects can cost hundreds of thousands. And we're constantly spending to improve safety, to reduce injury and death. This, again, being a low cost project, I think is really a no-brainer, and we should really go this way and consider particularly these 3 defibrillators being outdoors for increased public access. I know Adelaide City Council is now moving these outdoors. I know Henley Beach has got a couple outdoors, so it's Torrensville, and I know of a couple in Norwood at the moment as well. And there are councils interstate moving all defibrillators outside. So I think it's just something that is a progression, and it will happen within the future more so.
Got a minute left, Councillor.
Sorry?
You've got a minute left.
Okay, regarding vandalism, I've done a bit of research there, and it doesn't appear to be, a huge problem in councils elsewhere and just generally. And there is a likelihood of vandalism with any council property, and these defibrillators are in visible locations with people around in daylight hours. So I'm not sure if it's a problem that's any different to sort of other items belonging to council. The other thing is we can get these cabinets do come with alarms. So if anyone's tampering with them, opens them, there are alarms that can come with them. And I'm not sure it's standard, but you can purchase them with alarms. I hope our members here, do realise the importance of this project.
Thank you. Time's up.
Yes, sorry.
Time's up. Do I have a second?
Yes,
Councillor Barnett.
certainly, having had my brush with the heart attack. Yeah, I think it's certainly very worthwhile for us to be doing this. And that's when with Prosper RSL looked into it, and all the clubs around there, then we asked, like not that football club, but they're all internal. So the Prospect RSL committee purchased one self. When I investigated, has been on the committee on their behalf, we got quite a good sale one that was in some like registered provider up in Queensland, but we want to support locally, perhaps we should. And they're all self-explanatory. So as soon as the incident happens, it's got all the information there that it provides, it all there, so you don't have to worry about if you're doing the right thing or not, perhaps. So I think you could certainly give it, do it as a trial. It seems to me like that at Nailsworth and the Cane Reserve, we've got the exercise areas, so that will fit there. I don't know what's happening up at Broadview, but that hasn't been put onto this list. And I did query some time ago with the height of our hall. I don't think anybody really knows. Would anybody know? Yeah, do a quiz where we have one in this building. Staff, it's out, but where the stage area is and that exit door, and it's on the wall there. You go past it when you go to the toilets. But how many people would know that it's there? So I rest my case.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Has anyone else got anything to add that hasn't already been covered? If not, I'll head back to councillor Hollett for a summary.
I do want to just add that the reason I didn't mention other locations and just concentrated on Nailsworth Community Hall and Cane Reserve is some other places like Broadview, Sporting Precinct, they do have extended hours. So it's more accessible there, and there is if this proves to be something that everyone supports and residents support, it is something that, because of its low cost, we can introduce at a later date and bring to council for recommendation in the future, because I think rather than having sort of brought to you a very extensive list of locations, I think any further ones would probably be best having more separate discussion and investigation on what other areas might require. Yeah.
Thank you, councillor Hollett. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Let's get Councillor Deputy Mayor Mark Rees back.
Andrew, go and grab the deputy mayor, please. Thank you.
Welcome back, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item 15 on the agenda, questions with notice there are nil.